Is Mysterium Park the perfect Halloween game?
Ooh.
In Mysterium Park, a ghost player will cooperate with a team of investigators by providing them vision cards that'll silently lead them towards murder suspects.
Is Mysterium Park the perfect Halloween game?
It's a very excellent Halloween game, I think. It's very thematic.
But perfect, right?
Maybe not perfect, but the things that make it very Halloween-y is it has kind of like that mysterious air.
It had that Mysterium air.
I didn't even think of that. But
Oh,
yes,
yeah. The
that's
core.
Literally the name. But the whole theme with the like clowns and detectives, I don't know. That's always a very common thing.
Yeah.
Well, the clowns don't bother me, but
Gotcha.
to be perfect, depending on your flavor for Halloween, maybe it should be a bit more spooky, but it's really, I'd say, a very good opening Halloween game, maybe.
When you say flavor, you're saying, where's your knob on how actually scary versus spooky versus fun?
Yeah, like fun, scary versus like if you enjoy being terrified. So this won't do that if you love being terrified, but it still definitely gets you in the mood of like a fun, scary.
This isn't Friday the 13th, the slasher, the board game. This is haunted house, spooky, go to the carnival.
Yeah, and maybe that's what you want though, right?
Yes.
So.
And that's actually why I feel actually it is the perfect Halloween game. But in terms of who it might sort of encapsulate, I think this has the ability to then capture people who might be into the slasher thing because they still love Halloween. They just have to tone it down a notch, let's say. But then they'll get the people who are more into the spooky, fun, trick or treat type thing. You disagree?
Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah. It would be more Halloween-y to me if, like, I'd say the theme of the board, all the characters and the locations are sort of more Halloween style, but the cards itself do vary into the almost comical or light. So it's hard to say that it's kind of Halloween themed unless the whole deck, I'd say, is kind of more on that type of thing.
Right. Yeah. No, I get you. So, I mean, because this is a game where there's investigators and there's ghosts, or just the one ghost, and we're trying to sort of solve a murder through giving visions to other players. How do you think you might be able to set up the atmosphere of this game to maybe make it approach more of what you'd be looking for?
If you were doing the kind of carnival expansion one, definitely play that kind of music in the background.
Yeah.
And if it's the regular one, I'd say just light some more candles, have it dim. Right. You can't have it too dim because you need to see quite well. But otherwise, you could still set it up thematically, or it's a fast enough one you could do it before watching a movie or carving a pumpkin or something like that.
Oh, that's fun. That's a good idea. 2 words to describe Mysterium Park. Ready?
Yeah. That's interesting.
Ooh, artistic, difficult. Ooh. I suspect that your artistic is similar to my beautiful. Why?
Probably. I think that the components of the card are so well done.
Totally.
Like there's tons of cards to look at, and some of them are very quirky, but it's all very well done. Like the art style is very cool. They've paid a lot of attention to detail for each of the characters and locations and the other cards. So.
And it stands out for you, hey, compared to some other games, or what do you think?
Yeah, the detail. Yeah.
Totally. I think I agree with you too, because we look at some of the character cards, for example, I think they're very well illustrated, but then they do such a great job at just putting on the card, they'll have the face, and then their profession will be represented by certain little things like here's a yarn ball or here's some milk. So, they're a milkmaid.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to say that it's milkmaid, for example, but like the small artistic details of the components there give you a good impression. It's like, oh, this is the tailor, or this is the security guard, or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm so impressed by how much variety they have in the cards too. Because like once we're mixing up Mysterium cards and we're mixing up Mysterium Park cards, which is the sequel, in my opinion, Mysterium Park is the one to get because it's more streamlined and delivers that experience in a tighter package. But we're using all that stuff together, and all of it's so consistent and good.
It was neat to see that you right away could blend the games into one streamlined.
Sure. And there's nothing official about that, but I just think there's no reason not to necessarily. And like clearly it didn't suffer when we played it that way.
No.
And then the thing that I wanted to transition to too as well, just based off the art, is that to me, there's stories there. So when we're talking about like, that's the milkmaid, and you're saying they don't have to beat you over the head with it, you just look at the card and then you start to formulate that story of like, who is this? What might they do? Like you even look at their demeanor or their face. And then beyond that, I think when you're forming cards as your ability, when you're the ghost giving us vision through cards, you're forming stories sometimes being like, well, here's this vampire and he relates to the doctor because it's like you're getting up from a deep slumber, you're awakening or reviving someone, and there's some bones there. So obviously that's related to maybe what a medical professional would do.
Yeah, you have to do some sort of story you have to formulate so that your companion can guess your translation.
Right, totally. I find that so satisfying when you come up with a story and then I grab onto it because it feels so abstract. But then when I grab onto your abstract nature, it's very satisfying to be like, wow, she actually picked up this mental image that I was trying to put in her mind.
Yeah,
you find
definitely.
that too?
Yeah, and even some of the individual cards seem to have a story of their own too.
Sure.
Like this penguin one we were looking at today.
Yeah.
Is just very bizarre, but like what's going on with all these like emperor penguins tearing up pillows, and then it's like, oh, I think they're making actually snow is what I think maybe the artist was doing as a story, which is kind of fun. So
totally, like there's a drought and they're using anything that's like powdery or white to enact as snow to recreate their environment.
So you can kind of make up your own thing.
Yeah,
it's kind of neat
and difficult.
Yes, and that's what like follows with difficult. Then it's like, oh well and good to say a story, but it is very difficult. I found like I did a poor job as the ghost choosing one of the cards for my impressions. Just like I couldn't.
Well, I don't even think poor. It is just difficult, isn't it?
It was very difficult.
So you're like looking at all your visions. So you have this hand of visions in that you could at your disposal, but you don't see how they necessarily relate to this main board here.
Sometimes like we got lucky with one that was like, well, clearly this hat looks like this guy's hat, so we can choose that card, but otherwise, like, it wasn't very difficult.
But on that point with the hat and the hat, like, I think that's what's interesting about it sometimes is that you can go for the straight ahead. This hat looks like that hat on that card. But sometimes people will think that you're going deeper. So then, like, as a ghost, so someone who's providing the visions, do you have like almost a style where you tend to be the vibe ghost that's giving out cards that kind of just do it based on color scheme? Or do you tend to be the very detailed oriented ghost where you see the emperor penguins on this card, but then there's these small crows on this other card that you're trying to link them up to, right? So there's all these different ways that you could approach it.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you might approach it differently depending on the other cards in your hand. So
I was curious what you felt about the two roles. So you've got the ghosts and the investigators. So the investigators would be using the visions that the ghosts get to then select what they're trying to sort of communicate. How did you feel about the two, and do you have a preference?
Yeah, they're very different. I prefer being the investigator.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because maybe it's not as much fun looking through the cards and things, but I just feel like I do better as that. And I struggle finding the cards. Like I do much better at maybe some other association games, but not this one so much.
Do you feel stressed when you're the ghost trying to provide the visions?
I wouldn't say stressed at all, no. But it's still something that is challenging, and like I do better interpreting, I think. Almost
in a two-player scenario, I think I might prefer the ghost in some cases. So I just think they're very balanced, and both of them are fun, which I think you might probably agree with, even if you prefer
They're
the
very balanced, yeah. I'd say they're different enough, but balanced for a two-player at least.
But fun, both fun still, right? Yeah,
definitely.
Biggest drawback for Mysterium and Mysterium Park. Ooh, luck. That surprises me. Why?
Well, I think it just relates to how I found it challenging that if it's something that you're like trying to do against as a competition with someone else, then it can be very luck based depending on the cards you get. Like you could get that one card that's perfect and you just move on. Yes. Or you can have maybe a slightly more frustrating game where you just pick up nothing.
That's a really good point. I actually 100% agree with you. In your case, right, there was a ballerina character that we need to link to, and you got super lucky in just getting the ballerina shoe with the ballerina frog on the card vision.
Yeah.
And then it's just like an instant link. Yeah. So I almost feel like I agree with you in the sense that it's luck, but it's almost, to me, it's more the swing. So I'd almost prefer if they just designed out some of the things that were so obvious like that.
Yeah. That's it, I think, actually, is the swing. So if they just made it more like they're all obscure, that'd be fine.
But I could see how you would interpret it as luck, and I think that's very fair too.
How about downtime?
This one is where I just find that I don't have a lot of ways to interact with you as the ghost when you're selecting visions. And so if you are not on, let's say, a round where you've already received cards or visions before, it's just basically you're just staring at the board, looking at detail. There's not a lot to do. I'm not necessarily invested in what you're doing during that moment where you're seeking visions out, because there's not a lot for me to actually accomplish or do. Do you agree at all, or what do you think?
I think that's very valid. Like the downtime there, you are kind of just looking at the board.
But it's still, it's harmless, and I think it's still fun, especially if you're in that group scenario. So it's not something that bothers me at all. Does it bother you?
Not with the amount we played.
And it's so fast, right? Regardless.
It was. I think that's a real benefit, is it's quite a quick game.
I mean, even just this weekend, we played it like 4 times.
So what are your final thoughts on this?
It's a great Halloween-based game to have in your collection. And it's going to come out pretty much every Halloween without fail, because someone's going to be looking for something a little spookier. Someone's going to get excited by having something that's going to fill that void during this time period. And I do feel like it's accessible enough that you could even bring this to a family gathering, or even a party where you don't really know how many people are going to be into board games, but you want to recreate that atmosphere. And I think, again, even recreating that atmosphere, as we talked about a little bit with candles or dimming the lights, is going to be perfect for this game, and then perfect for that Halloween experience. I'd give it a B or an A tier. I think A if you're closer to really enjoying Halloween, for sure. How about yourself?
Seasonally, it could be the A game.
Yeah.
Because it's easy. Yeah, I think it's a game that is easy to learn, a bit challenging to play. Can play a variety of people, or even just two, and is a really fun, semi-thematic Halloween game.
A tier for seasonal, you said, yeah?
But B the rest of the year.
B the rest of the year.
Because I think that there's only so many times you could maybe play it.
Right. Oh, it would grow a little staler for you after a certain amount of plays?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's okay. So it's that high impactful game during a specific time of year. And then the rest, you'll bring it out every once in a while.
Mysterium Park shines in a spooky group setting. But there's another gathering game that's even easier and more wild for any season. Discover this simple board game that'll expose people's controversial opinions next.